Hey, sports fans. So I know wild card weekend is coming up for the NFL, so I thought I'd give my own predictions, like a lot of you have already. I'm a little late to the party because I was going back and forth on four of these games. Pretty much every game except the 2-7 matchup, I think, could go down to the wire. So let's get started. First game is Saturday afternoon. Cincinnati against Las Vegas. Cincinnati favored by 5 points, odds makers have. Um, and the Bengals defeated the Raiders right around Thanksgiving, 32-13. So they already have a win under the belt against them. But ironically, in that game, it was only 13-6 going into the fourth quarter. It was basically a game where Cincinnati used Mixon to wear down Las Vegas's defense to the point where they were just like dead by the fourth quarter. Mixon ran 30 times for 123 yards, whereas the Raiders almost had the opposite game plan. They were going through Derek Carr through the passing game. They only had Josh Jacobs run 9 times for 37 yards. And I think that's sort of an interesting dilemma that the Raiders have. They really have to get the running game going, has to go through the running game for them. And then Derek Carr will have his chances. Also in that game, with all of the running, the Bengals had 15 extra minutes of possession. Um, that is definitely going to be an emphasis for the Raiders defense, which they have struggled with all season, is containing the run game, which they did actually pretty well against the Chargers and Eckler. I mean, they basically forced Herbert to have to almost win the game for them through the air. So they have improved as the season has gone on since Thanksgiving. But that is going to be an interesting matchup. Let's talk about rookies, though, in the NFL starting in the playoffs. 18 rookies have started in the playoffs in the Super Bowl era, and the record is 9 wins, 18 losses across 27 games. And an interesting stat is the last 5 rookies to start a postseason game have all lost. Rookie quarterbacks are 2-8 in playoff games since 2010. You have to go back to Andy Dalton beating T.J. Yates, I believe, in 2011, and Russell Wilson beating Robert Griffin III in 2012. Remember, it was the RG3 game where he was already sort of hurt, and then he like really hurt his knee in that game and really pretty much ended his career. But an interesting point with those two games were it was a rookie quarterback going up against a rookie quarterback. So they don't really count in the grand scheme of things. I think that's an interesting aspect going into this game. Can Joe Burrow, can he handle the nerves, especially that first quarter and a half? Similar to last week in the Raiders-Chargers game, Herbert had all the pressure on him. I think most people thought the Chargers were going to win, make it in. They had so many chances to make it in the playoffs, and you could tell he just couldn't handle that pressure early on, the first quarter and a half, even first half. And what's interesting about this matchup, offensively, Cincinnati is by far the more talented team. They have Joe Burrow. They have Jamar Chase, who is probably should be the rookie of the year. They have T. Higgins. They have Mixon. If Burrow is having some nerves, they can just give it to Mixon. They have Boyd. They have so many different targets. And on paper, it should be a fairly straightforward game for Cincinnati. But I think for me, I'm going to pick the Raiders. Let me see what I have for the score. I said Raiders win 24-21. Here's how I think the game's going to go. I think Burrow is going to have a flat start, right? He didn't play last week. They sat the starters. Cincinnati sat the starters. And the last time we really saw them, they were just sort of partying it up in the locker room after a conference win. And so I don't know. tough for me to think that they're just going to be ready to go right off the bat. And I think it's going to hit them in that first quarter like, whoa, this is a playoff game. This is my first time, and we're expected to win. I think Cincinnati is sort of the favorite as far as like a lower seed to make a push and maybe even make the Super Bowl. And I think Joe Burrow isn't going to handle it quite as well. And so if the Raiders, unlike the first game, if they can stop Joe Mixon and the running game and force Burrow to have to sort of lead the team, I think it's going to be tricky, at least for like a quarter and a half to a half. Having said that, I think Cincinnati's still going to make it a close game. Um, I think it's going to be very similar to the Raiders-Chargers game that went to overtime last time. Um, an interesting stat too in this game: Raiders are 7-2 in one possession games. They've won their last 4 in a row in one possession games. Right? We have to go back to the Indianapolis game, and then we had the Chargers game, and there were so many where they've almost become accustomed to be playing in the fourth quarter and having chances to win. I think that's going to be the case in this game. I think it's going to be a one possession game going into the fourth quarter, and I just predict experience is going to win. It feels like Derek Carr is ready to win a playoff game. He said at the end of the Chargers game in the interview with Michelle Tafoya, he said, it's not done. The journey's not done. We're excited, but we have bigger goals. And I think that's a really telling line by him, because even throughout the game, he was very calm. It was almost like they knew. They knew they were going to make the playoffs, and they're expecting to beat Cincinnati, and I think they will. I have Raiders 24-21. Okay, that was a long analysis. Sorry about that. Let's move on to New England traveling to Buffalo. Odds makers have Buffalo, the home team, as a 4-point favorite. Interesting with the division that the road teams have won this season in each of the matchups. In the first game, remember, it was like 60-mile-an-hour winds in Buffalo, and Bill Belichick had Mac Jones throw the ball 3 times. And if you told anyone before the game that that was going to happen, they probably would say, wow, Buffalo's probably just like destroying them, and that's why they are not using Mac Jones. They're just sort of getting the game over with. But instead, I think Bill Belichick just outcoached Sean McDermott in that game, knowing that the wind and the weather conditions favored a running game, sort of a punch him in the mouth type game. That totally favors New England with Damian Harris on the ground. And instead of adjusting, Sean McDermott just sort of had had Josh Allen try to keep throwing the ball through the air when it was obvious they needed to run the ball. They needed to run maybe Josh Allen out of the pocket. And there really was no adjustment made in the Bills game. They just played it how they would a normal game. And I think Bill Belichick thoroughly outcoached him. Let me see here. In the second game, obviously much more of a normal conditions in New England, except for being pretty cold. Josh Allen was able to throw for 300 yards. Mac Jones struggled, had 2 interceptions. I think the liability for the Patriots is they aren't really a good comeback team. If it's going to be a shootout type of a game, that is not the style they want to play. They want to control the clock with Harris and their running game. And basically, they just want to utilize Jones as sort of more of a game manager, sort of like Alex Smith back in the day, just sort of having him throw screen passes and little 10-yard passes, and then having Harris just explode through the line. But it's going to be difficult, I think, for the Patriots in this game. The weather conditions in Buffalo for Saturday night, supposed to be super cold, 5 degrees, almost Lambeau temperatures, almost where I am, and 5-mile-an-hour winds. So definitely favoring the Bills in this one. I do think since it's a divisional game, I think it's going to follow sort of the same pattern as the second game. I do think Jones is going to play a little bit cleaner. Bills coming in have won their last 4 games, and it could have been 5 games in a row. Remember, against the Buccaneers, the Bills had a chance in overtime. It looked like they should have gotten a couple penalties, questionable calls. Didn't go their way, but for sure they've won 4 in a row coming in. They have the momentum. Patriots have lost 3 out of their last 4 games, and this was even with starting Mac Jones and pretty much the starters against Miami in Week 18, trying to get the division win against the Bills. And the 3 losses, Colts, Bills, and Dolphins, so all good teams, but I think the defense has been a little bit of a letdown. I think this game does turn into more of a shootout, which favors the Bills, and I'm going Buffalo 31, Patriots 26, so I have the 3 seed Bills moving forward. All right, moving on, Tampa Bay. They play in the noon game on Sunday, right? They play in the snooze fest time slot. And I think that's what it's going to be. If anyone has any reason the Eagles are even going to be competitive in this game, leave a comment below. I'm not trying to trash them in any way, but even with Godwin and Antonio Brown not playing for the Buccaneers, Tom Brady still has Evans. He still has Gronkowski. He still has Brait. So anyone that's worried that Tampa Bay is going to somehow all of a sudden be this team that struggles on offense and only can score like 10 points a game, that's not going to happen. And they showed that in their previous game to Carolina. I think Gronk had like numerous catches, way more than his average. I think that's what they're just going to redistribute the ball to the 2 tight ends, the ones that Godwin would have had. They still have Fournette. They still have Jones. They have a plethora of options on offense. And if we noticed anything, even with the second string Eagles team, they are not the best on defense. In their previous game, Tampa Bay sort of won a close game, 28-22. It became closer in the fourth quarter, sort of garbage time touchdown for the Eagles to make that close. Odds makers have Tampa 8.5, and I actually think that's a bit low considering offensively they're better than the Eagles, defensively they're better than the Eagles. Philadelphia this season is 0-6 against opponents in the playoffs. Their best win came against the Saints, 40-29, sort of in the middle of the season. And even that game, if you watch that game, it really wasn't that good of a game that they played. Giving up almost 30 points to the Saints isn't ideal, especially if you want to have confidence in them beating Tom Brady. In contrast, Buccaneers 4-1 against playoff teams, including their win against Philly. They're 7-1 at home. Their only loss is to the Saints, which seems to be the only time they lose lately is to the Saints. So, I'm going to go, I actually forgot to put my prediction in my notes. I'm going to go 31-17 Tampa Bay, but it could easily be more. It could easily be sort of how they played against Carolina, where it was like in the 40s. So, yeah, Tampa Bay for sure is winning this one. So are Eagles fans. Now let's go on. Cowboys and Niners. Cowboys at home. They're the 3 seed. Niners the 6 seed. The Niners, I think, are probably the popular upset pick out of all these games. I think pretty much everyone would say this is going to be the closest game, although I think there are a lot of close games, going to be a lot of close games this weekend. This one is the hardest game for me to pick because both defenses have the ability to stop the run. Both defenses are pretty close to the top in rush defense. Cowboys have gone downhill as the season's gone on. They're sort of middle of the pack in the last few games with rush defense. And that's exactly what the Niners' game plan is going to be with running Hasty, and all of their other running backs. I mean, they have like numerous running backs that they can use. Niners rank 7th in rush defense. And I think it's actually going to be a similar game plan for Dallas starting out to get Elliott and Pollard going in the rush game. Take pressure off Dak. I think that's the biggest plan for Dallas. They don't want to have to rely on Dak making a ton of throws on third down. That's not a recipe for success for them, even though they have Cooper, they have CeeDee Lamb, they have Dalton Schultz. I mean, they have a bunch of players on the team. Offensively, there's definitely more depth in the passing offense for the Cowboys compared to the Niners. And so the defensive plan for Dallas is really simple. It's, can they contain the run enough to force Jimmy G to have to throw numerous times on third down? And Dallas ranks the highest in the league for interceptions. Trayvon Diggs, 11 interceptions. That's more than all of the Niners defense combined this season. And then Micah Parsons on the defensive line for Dallas, 13 sacks. Bosa for the Niners rivaling him with 15 and a half sacks. And I think it's going to be interesting which offensive line holds up better. I think that really is going to be the game in a nutshell, especially for the Niners. If their offensive line can't hold up so they can get the runs they need to put Jimmy G in comfortable passing situations, if it does get to third down, it could get ugly. I do expect this one to be a close game, like the odds maker said. 3-point favorite for Dallas. Both teams' offensive line have sort of given up quite a few sacks. I think this is going to be a little bit of a messy turnover type game. I'm going to go with Dallas, though, winning 27-20. I think Dallas, while they will allow the Niners probably to have a little bit more time of possession and have some possessions that they really, draw out with the run, which we saw against the Rams the Niners had. I think at the end of the day, they're going to get a couple more possessions where Jimmy G is going to have to throw. And I mean, that's right in Dallas's wheelhouse. I think the turnovers, I think Jimmy G probably throws for 2 interceptions. I think Cowboys play a little bit of a cleaner game. Not saying they play the cleanest game. I think Prescott probably will throw an interception throughout the game. But I'd say Cowboys by 7. But this is one where it could easily go the other way. I could easily see just the Cowboys not being able to contain the 49ers run and just losing time of possession. Their defense sort of gets winded, and it could completely go the other way. It's just a gut feeling. I think Dak and the Cowboys are ready to make a deeper run in the playoffs than normal. They don't want to be one and done. They don't want to have that whole narrative. And I think the passing game for Dallas is just stronger than the Niners. They have more options on offense. They have more ability to win, I think. And I think the game plan is almost too simple for the Niners. And Dallas knows that. Dallas knows the 49ers does not want to have Jimmy G throwing a bunch. I mean, it really comes down to can Dallas stop the 49ers run? I really think that's what it comes down to, and I think they will enough. I think the 49ers too, like I said, are going to have a couple possessions where it looks like, oh, they're just going to dominate Dallas. But in the end, there's going to be more chances than not for Dallas to get that interception on Jimmy G. So that's my pick, Dallas by 7. Move on, Kansas City, Pittsburgh. Big Ben, this is going to be your last game. I mean, does anyone think Pittsburgh has a chance? This is sort of like the Philly Tampa Bay game. I will say this. I think Pittsburgh has a slightly better chance than the Eagles of pulling the 7 seed upset. Like I give Pittsburgh like a 5% chance of winning, and I give the Eagles maybe a 1% chance, just because I don't want to say zero and then they end up just proving me wrong. As a Packer fan, I would love the Eagles to win, but I already went past that game. So Kansas City, 13-point favorite. And interesting, yesterday morning in his press conference, Ben Roethlisberger said, quoted, I'm quoting, "We're probably 20-point underdogs. We don't have a chance, so let's go in and have fun." Like, I get where he's coming from. I don't think they have a chance. And I think he's saying this sort of as a half truth. He's trying to relax the team. He's trying to say, let's just have fun because they are the underdogs and they don't want some of the younger guys on the team to sort of think, ooh, get all nervous. But to be honest, they probably should be 20-point underdogs. I think the line 13, it's right around there, but I go the over on that one. Pittsburgh's offense ranks near the bottom of the league in explosive plays. We all know that. Ben Roethlisberger has had trouble even throwing like 20-yard passes. I mean, typically his passes are from the sticks to the line of scrimmage. There's really nothing beyond that. I thoroughly expect the Chiefs defense to bring those safeties down, to bring everyone down, probably load the box, stop Harris, and then, play for those 5-yard out routes that it just seems like Pittsburgh runs every single play. And while I don't want to bash Mike Tomlin, I think he's a great coach. I think he's really going to have to mix it up this game with trick plays. Like he's going to have to force Roethlisberger just to, throw it as far as he can, just to like loosen up the defense, even if it doesn't work. Show that you're going to try to do something different, because it's just, you're not going to beat the Chiefs defense by trying to throw little 5-yard passes. It's not going to happen. They've been a bend but not break defense the whole year. I see them allowing Pittsburgh to drive a bit, but I just don't see how Pittsburgh gets in the end zone. Even though my prediction they do a couple times. And I think another factor in this game is Pittsburgh defense is terrible. I mean, the only way Pittsburgh is going to win is by outscoring Kansas City. And Kansas City, I'm guessing, is going to put up at least 25 plus points in this game. My prediction is Kansas City winning 36-20. But would it surprise me if it's even more, 40 plus points? It would not surprise me. I think the running game for Kansas City has always been a question mark, which has forced Mahomes to have a lot more pressure on him to make those superstar plays. And his patience has come into question as far as can he do what Ben Roethlisberger does sometimes and just sort of dinks it down the field, just one first down after the other, instead of trying to throw for that 40 plus yard pass to Hill or Kelsey or Hardman. So many options. And Pittsburgh and Kansas City had played already. Mahomes went 23 for 30, 258 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was able to make those explosive plays. Kansas City won the turnover battle. That's another thing. Pittsburgh turns the ball over way too much. +3 for Kansas City in that game. So yeah, I don't think I need to really go into it anymore. I think Kansas City in a rout, 36-20. And our final game of the day, I'm sorry this video is so long. I tried to really bring up a lot of analysis to, show why I'm making these predictions. I know some I'm just basing it off of, rookie quarterback stats, like in the Raiders Cincinnati game. I basically just I'm assuming Cincinnati in that game is going to be nervous. If they aren't, they're going to win. But I think they're going to be nervous for long enough in that game where the Raiders, um, the Raiders will have a chance in the end. And if the Raiders have a chance, they've proven that they're ready, and that I think it's sort of Derek Carr's time and not Joe Burrow's time. I think that comes later, just like it with all rookie quarterbacks. That first playoff win normally takes a little bit of time. But I'm backtracking. So let's go back to the Rams. The Rams hosting the Cardinals, divisional matchup again. And interestingly, just like the New England Buffalo matchup, both road teams won in this series. In the first game, 37-20, Arizona just dominated. You could say this is when they still had Hopkins. This is when they still had Watts. This is when they still had a couple other players that really influenced that game. Two turnovers for the Rams in that game. And in the second game, a little bit closer, Rams win by a touchdown in Arizona. And interestingly, two turnovers for Arizona. So in both of the games, I think turnovers are really the key, or else it would have been very close games. If both teams have played clean games, it's a one possession, probably kick a field goal at the end of the game type of game. Coming into this game, Rams coming in winning 5 of the last 6. But I will say, the Rams, in winning those games, it has not been pretty. Like anyone that watched that Baltimore game where, I mean, Stafford was throwing to the other team more than he was throwing to his own team knows that was not pretty. And this is with a Baltimore team that's depleted. You know, the Rams, that was a game that they should have won by double digits, and just to like on a last drive sort of scoring play, that should not have happened. But coming in, Cardinals have lost 4 of their last 5. So in contrast, the Cardinals have not been playing well since their winning streak at the beginning of the season. Watt is out. Hopkins is out. They're not going to be playing in this game, I don't believe, especially Hopkins. It's a little tough sledding, I think, on the offensive side of the ball for the Cardinals. Defensively as well, they've sort of struggled the last few games. Giving up 38 points to Seattle last week isn't going to give them too much confidence going in against the Rams. But with it being a divisional game, I think it's most divisional games in the playoffs always come down to sort of one possession. This is another one, just like the Cowboys-Niners game. These two, I think, were the toughest for me to predict. I do think typically on each side of the bracket there's one upset, and so since I picked Tampa Bay, the 2 seed, and Dallas, the 3 seed, to win, it sort of prompted me to pick. I am going to pick Arizona to win. Normally, when you have these divisional rounds, the home team wins more times than not. But I think because Arizona won earlier in the season in LA, that's going to be the difference. They're going to have confidence. If anything, Arizona is glad they're the road team. Both of these teams actually have much better records away from home. I think when they play at home, they just feel too much pressure, especially both quarterbacks. Their turnover margin is like so much better away from home for both of these teams. And another interesting stat is Stafford has thrown 7 interceptions in his last 3 games. Do I think that's just miraculously going to stop against Arizona's defense, even though Arizona is trending downward on defense? No. Anyone that's seen the Rams last week and against Baltimore saw some of those throws. I mean, some of those throws probably a high school team could intercept. I mean, and that's no disrespect to Stafford, but some of the decision making, I'm not sure if it's, he's feeling the playoff pressure already. there's been expectations for the Rams since the season began, since they signed Stafford. you know, this is where they're going to win, right? They have Stafford, they have Cooper Kupp, they have Van Jefferson, they have Odell Beckham, they have Sony Michel. I mean, they have the weapons to make the Super Bowl. And as a Packers fan, they definitely worry me if all the seeds win out and the Rams have to come to Green Bay. That team, honestly, out of all the possible teams the Packers can play, right, 4 seed down, the Rams would be the toughest team, I think, because their offense is so multi-dimensional. All the others, like the Niners, it's the run game. Just stop the run and you should be good. With the Eagles, it's sort of they just struggle, honestly, on all sides of the ball. And with the Cardinals, I think it's sort of stopping Kyler Murray from working his magic, and then they sort of break down. Whereas the Rams, they have the running game. If Stafford plays a clean game, they could go all the way. The problem in this matchup is I trust Kyler Murray more, which is a little sad because he's more of the rookie quarterback in this case. Stafford has more of the pressure, and similar to what Big Ben said, Arizona has nothing to lose. Arizona is the away team, and Arizona is coming off of a loss to the Rams at home. So I think that's really interesting. But an interesting point, too, is Stafford, the last time he didn't throw an interception was against Arizona. In his previous 4 games, he's thrown an interception. 8 interceptions in 4 games, 7 in 3 games. And I just think Stafford is going to be a little generous again. I'm going to say Arizona gets 2 interceptions, and it's just going to be enough. I think Arizona wins. I'm going to say Arizona wins 33-26. And those are my predictions. So just to recap, we got the Raiders winning, and the Raiders then would move on to play the 1 seed Tennessee Titans. So I have Raiders, Titans. Then I have Buffalo winning, and Buffalo would move on to play Kansas City. So Raiders, Titans in the 1 AFC matchup, Kansas City going up against Buffalo in the 2nd matchup. And then on the NFC side of the ball, my one upset is Arizona over the Rams. So I have Arizona going into Lambeau, which, to be honest, I think for Packers fans, that's not a horrible matchup for them. I think they should be favored in that. And then I have Dallas going to face Tom Brady in what should be, to me, a very high-scoring shootout type of a game. So all interesting matchups. Let me know what your predictions are in the comments. Let me know. I know this is a long-winded video. I probably repeated myself like a zillion times, but let me know your predictions. Let me know your Super Bowl picks. For me, I'm going with last year's Super Bowl in a repeat. I just think sort of that experience factor for Tom Brady and Mahomes on both sides is just going to be a little too strong. Both teams are trending in the right direction. I know Buccaneers have the injuries and the holes in their offense, but I think, it's Tom Brady, and he knows how to win in the playoffs. So until he loses, I'm going to continue to pick Tom Brady, unfortunately. I really want to see the Packers and Aaron Rodgers get there, but I think it's sort of going to be a repeat of last year. All right, so let me know your comments. Tell me where I'm an idiot. Tell me where I've gotten it wrong. And let's have a good wild card weekend. Bye, guys.